Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Kapow from Wise Wizard Games. Kapow is a two-player head-to-head dice crafting and dice building tableau system as you try to wind your opponent's health down to 0. Now I said two-player game, there is a solo mode as well, there's also a teams mode, so technically it's 1 to 4 player, although on Board Game Geek, I don't know what the box says, but on Board Game Geek, let me just check the box, give me a second, on Board Game Geek it said 2 to 4 players, which is weird, because there's definitely a solo mode. You know what? This is honestly really weird. The box here says 1 to 2 players, Board Game Geek says 2 to 4, and it's really a 1 to 4 player game, so I don't know what to make of that. But either way, this mostly two-player game, because it is mostly a two-player game. It's going to be focused mainly as a head-to-head experience. There is a solo mode. You could dive into that. I will say, as we kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but I played the solo mode, and it wasn't as much for me. I like the flavor and the fun of the two-player, and I think the solo is fun, but I'd rather play a two-player any day of the week. Now let's actually talk about what the game is and how it plays. This is a head-to-head dice crafting system as you go ahead and build up your tableau and ultimately roll pools of dice to take your opponent's health down to 0. That's the core idea of it. You're going to have your characters over here. Let me go ahead and lift my player screen up. You'll have your player screen, you'll have your characters. This particular character starts with one of each of these dice, which is actually a little unusual because most characters usually start with, where's my purple? Here we go. Most characters usually start with some of these dice as well. He happens to not, but don't worry, we'll solve that pretty quickly because we're going to roll a dice and then start assigning them to various areas in the game. We're going to look at our dice. We got 2 blanks, really a bad start. We did get that, which is going to help us. So we're going to use that combined with our wild to start grabbing a die that we can craft, which is going to be helpful here. We'll come back to that shortly. Over here we have non-blank die equals. That's going to be tough because we want to get maybe some defense in, or do we want to just go for pure upgrade? You know what, we're going to go ahead and do any die equals any die. So these two require dice face that match each other. We're going to place those there because you can even do that with blank faces. One of the things about the game is you can basically use anything all the time. The question is what you use and how you use. Now I could use this crescendo over here, this kicker, but a kicker needs an actual attack. We'll explain all of that shortly, don't worry. I think lastly we just need to figure out where to put this in a way that will actually be helpful. I don't want to put it purely to defense. I could just do an attack. You know what? Forget it. We're going to go all upgrade, I think. We're going to do all upgrade this round. It is what it is. We're going to go ahead and toss it over here to gain a non-wild face. So we're going to go ahead and reveal our board right about now and see what we have. And the other players also revealing their board at the same time. Now, for the sake of this conversation, we don't actually have their other board. But let's pretend that they assigned their dice in a way that did, like, they assigned their dice to this row over here. And they did basically, like, 4 damage to us. Because we didn't put anything in defense, this whole column's defense, this whole column's attack. We'll explain a bit more about that soon. I'm going to go ahead and take that 4 damage. The good news is, on their first turn, they may have hit us for 4, bringing our health from 25 down to 21. But I'm going to start upgrading and I'm building up my tableau. We're going to cash this dice in over here to go ahead and take a blank face over here and a non-wild face. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take another one of these. I like building my tableau a lot. It is my weakness. I often get sucker punched to death, but I do have stronger dice by the end of the game. We have this side where we gain a non-wild face. I'm going to take another one of those, popping it over here. And then we have 3 non-wild faces. And this will mix it up a bit more, trying to get some, you know what, we need some defense in play, because if I'm going to go heavy on this system here, where I just try to, stay alive, so to speak, I'm going to definitely need some defense in play. The nice part is Crescendo already has an ability with his defense, which is why I'm going to like this over here, where I can go ahead and gain health back if my opponent has more health than me, and he certainly does right now. So, that's turn 1. We're going to go to turn 2. We now have this dice, which we just crafted over here, which still has a blank side, but the other sides are all things I like. And we're going to go ahead, put up our screen a bit, although I don't think I need to put up my screen this time around. I'm going to roll some dice. So, we're going to roll some dice. Of course, I got the one side that didn't have anything. That is, of course, my luck. But I still got one of these, and I'm going to combine that with here to gain a trait die this time. We already got our upgraded die with the, customizable faces, but we're going to focus on getting a regular trait dice, which is basically any one of these pools over here. And we didn't even get what we need for defense over here, which is a pain. So you know what? Maybe we'll go ahead. Wow, we really got nothing. I think I am going to pop this into play over here, so that way I have a wild, where if my opponent has more health than me, which now that he did damage to me, I'll have that. But I still need to be mindful of defense over here, where I could go ahead and throw any die over here for a base defense. Now, this is where the defense and the attack work in similar ways. We have our base defense area over here. Then we have down here our kickers, which add to the base, so you can have one base and then any number of kickers, and then we also have our defense multipliers, which are often kickers and multipliers. So effectively, without getting too much into it, I could do a 1 base defense over here, and then depending on what I put over here, maybe I got a kicker and also gain a wild defense, so we're now up to 2. And then if I also did this over here, I'll get another +4, bringing us to 6, and do a ×2, bringing us to 12. So if you have enough dice, you can get some really solid defense and attacks in play, which you will need as the game progresses. For right now, we have our 1 defense over here, and I could just do a kicker. I guess I'm going to do this over here. We're going to do 1 face over here and 1 there, defense, kicker, and gain a non-wild face. So being still on our tableau, still building up our dice, but being mindful of the fact that he just attacked me, and I need to be careful because, sure, those first 4 I don't really care about, but as the game progresses, I might be in trouble. So fine, things are going okay. We'll go ahead and reveal our boards. Turns out he didn't actually attack me at all. He didn't, and I'm making this up. It's all much better when you make it up, although I am specifically making it worse myself. Turns out he didn't attack me at all. In fact, he went heavy on defense and tableau building, just like I did. So all this defense dice over here didn't matter at all, although I do get a non-wild face, which I'm going to use to round out this die so that everything is going to be helpful. And then I'll use these dice over here to be able to gain a trait die. And I think, you know what? I think I'm going to go with that defense die over there. Again, I want to get that defense die in place so I can start locking my defense. And then lastly, because he has more health than me, I will be able to heal 3, so there is that nice side there. So, things are going great. We're going to go ahead and roll our dice. We're going to go heavy on defense. The opponent knows that, which means I might try to attack. We're going to roll our dice, and we got these over here. This is what we got. Let's see what we can make do with this. So, over here, we can do a base attack of 4 with this side over here. We're going to go heavy on attack and see if we can sneak something through the enemy's defense over there. We could do a kicker, but if we do a kicker, we won't be able to do a blast. You know what? Let's go ahead and do a kicker. So we're going to do any die plus a wild. That's going to give us there. We are still going to go ahead, the power up. I'm not going to do the power up now because I'm trying to hit him in the face. So let's go ahead and try to get something that helps us here. We're going to do another one of these wild dice over here, another one of these, if we can get that there. And then let's pop this down for defense. I guess we can pop it down for defense. Sure, let's go ahead and pop down a single defense, which won't do a ton for me, but hey, it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and reveal and see what happens. Turns out he again went heavy on, defense and tableau building, and he put like 3 in defense, built up his little tableau, and I did 7 damage to him, punching through 3 through his defense, and basically hitting him there. Now there's a bunch of things you could have done. By the way, I totally should have put this over here. That's much better. That would have been so much better over there. That's after power, but sucker punches him. If he's upgrading, I hit him in the face, would have been much better. That's basically what's happening in this game. There's a few lanes to be mindful of. You're going to have, and this is kind of rock, paper, scissors to an extent. You're going to have your attack lane over here, where you're going to be trying to use dice to attack your opponent by adding a base, a kicker, and multipliers. You have defense, which is the same kind of idea, but with a little bit more defense boost throwing in there. I mean, attack's a little heavier on the actual punching through, but defense will give you some non-wild faces to add to your dice, which can help you out as you build your dice. Then we have our immediates over here, which give you some dice where you can reroll or gain health, although he usually has a stronger health gain over here if he's taking damage. We have a whole power up phase over here, and then down here are things that will hurt our opponent depending on whether he powered up or not. And that's basically what you're doing over there. You're going to keep going through that rock, paper, scissors element of powering up versus attacking versus defending versus hitting through power up, while trying to take your opponent's health down to 0, while building up an impressive pool of multiple dice, so that eventually by the time you hit the end game, either you've been, eliminated way too early, or you're rolling this giant handful of dice and assigning them left, right, and center to take down your opponent while still being mindful of your defense and trying to win in Kapow. And that's basically the game. Past that, there's a solo mode as well, there's a team play mode, but that is basically what's happening here, which brings us to a review, starting off with ease of play. Ease of play is incredibly easy to dive into. Teaching people this game takes like 5 minutes, you get them up and running in 2 minutes, and then from there it's just an issue of reading all this text, which is a bit at first, but it's really not that much. The core concepts of these are all basically the same, and then from here there's a few abilities. It's basically upgrading, attacking, or defending, with a few other things to be mindful of, and then of course your character board, which gives you a small little adjustment to how your character has differences to what they bring to the table and how different they feel as you play through it. Very easy to teach, very easy to get up and running. Games usually last around 20 minutes, I would say. I don't even know what the box says. Let's go look at the box. So the box says 1 to 2 players, so who knows there. It says 20 minutes. Perfect. I agree with that. I think it's a 20-minute game, basically. You can have some sessions that run as long as 30, but that's like a really long session. And if you're really going at it, you can have a session done in 10-15 minutes by just rolling dice, attacking, and doing all of that. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, first of all, it's just fun to roll dice and to build your tableau in the game while hitting your opponent along the way. That's what this game is. You are building a tableau. You start with a handful of dice, 5 to 6 dice, depending on the character, depending on what they bring to the table, and then from there you're just adding dice as you go. You're adding these wild dice where you can clip on faces. You're adding regular dice that have certain affinities as far as the different symbols on them. You're going through the process of just trying to slowly hit your opponent. Depending on which character or abilities you have, you might have permanent slots you can lock into play. This, by the way, is the level volume 2, but volume 1 is just, the same basic concept with a few more characters and abilities and villains and stuff like that to go through. But it's basically just quick tableau building. You're getting more dice, you're hitting your opponent, you're defending, and then it has that rock, paper, scissors mentality, which could be a lot of fun if it's something you like, which is just the idea of trying to think through what your opponent will do, trying to out-predict them as you play. You're going to go heavy on attack, but if they go heavy on defense, they'll just stop you, and meanwhile, they also are building their tableau at the same time, stopping you from taking them down, but they're getting stronger for the next few turns. Or alternatively, you can go heavy on defense and build your tableau, which doesn't help you if your opponent just went full on tableau. If I allocated half my dice to defending, half my dice to tableau building, and you went full tableau building, you're going to be progressing faster and further than I will while we go through this. Or those times where you just take 14 damage to the head, which does happen in this game because you didn't properly plan out or didn't properly read your opponent, and the opponent's going to smash you in the head, and you only have like 20 to 25 health on these characters, which means you're about to have a really, really bad day as you go through it. And the characters also provide their own little touch or feel or small little adjustments to the game as far as the variety they give you. So you have the core puzzle, which is this, again, this rock, paper, scissors mechanic of tableau building and hitting each other and rolling dice, and then combine that with a little bit of character variety as far as the small differences and different tastes they bring to the characters as you go through it. Which brings me to the things I don't like. Straight off the bat, I just said, hey, I like the character variety, and I do. I wish the characters brought more variety to the table. I find when I play this game, the characters give you maybe, 10% of the feel of the game. Most of the feel is the core puzzle on this board, which is the same character to character, and then these get used a little bit, depending on which character you're playing as, depending on your playstyle, and also depending on just how things play out. I find that I occasionally and infrequently use character abilities, and primarily use the core puzzle, and then touch, dabble in the character's abilities here and there. Now, there is a pro and con to that. The pro is the fact that because most of the game is the core thing that everyone understands, it means I don't run into that system where I just don't know what your character is about to do to me. When I'm playing this game, I know the kinds of things that are going to happen, and your character brings a small dash of, oh, you look at what you're doing, as opposed to just having to learn two characters every time you play, what I do and what you do. It doesn't really have that element. The downside is it doesn't bring a ton of variety to the characters. I like trying new characters and playing with them. The core game is mostly the back and forth of a single head-to-head, as opposed to anything the characters do. Past that, I'd say the dice crafting I thought was completely unnecessary. You have this dice crafting puzzle, a comic book inspired buildable dice game. I love the tableau building in this game, make no mistake. I like tableau building, I like it here as well. Powering up your characters, rolling greater handfuls of dice, that is all fun. What I think is unnecessary is this dice crafting system feels like an unnecessary gimmick on top of the game. You're throwing an extra dice faces on this. Okay, why is that better or different than just grabbing more dice? Grabbing more dice accomplishes the feel of what I want here, and crafting my own unique die just doesn't feel meaningful enough or cool enough or interesting enough. I don't mind it, to be clear, but it kind of feels like they tried putting this into the game so that it's a part of the game, and for me, it's fine, but I don't mind just buying more dice. In fact, I always prefer to buy more dice in this game, because these I just get, and these I have to slowly build across several turns, which just feels like more work, and then of course the maintenance aspect of popping them in and out, which is easy, but if you have a handful of dice in multiple faces, it still adds up pretty quickly. Lastly, I'd say the health doesn't give you a ton of room to build up your tableau in this game. This is a low character health game. This is a game which your characters have, 23 to 30 health on the characters. I don't know the full range, but somewhere in that range. And this is a game which you can also do 15 damage in a single turn, depending on how things play out. Which brings you the 20-minute playtime, which is fun, because you can have multiple rounds in a row, but if you do like that tableau building, which I particularly do, or if you do even that dice crafting, you're doing all of that for a game that runs pretty quickly, because before you know it, you're down to 0 health, because you just don't start with that much. You slowly build up a few dice, you go from 5 dice, maybe 8, 9 dice. I don't know what the maximum I've seen is, but I don't think I've gone higher than 10, because by that time you're just hitting somebody for enough damage that eventually someone is going to die. I almost wish the characters had double the health, or even just give us a boss mode where we can somehow double the health. I mean, I know I could just do it, but I have no clue the balance of it, especially with the characters. I have none of that stuff over there, none of the knowledge of how that will play out. I could just dabble with it, but overall I find the game moves too fast almost to really lean into some of the tableau building, which is my favorite part of the game. As far as I can see others not liking, this is a rock, paper, scissors game. That's what it is. It's a bit of bluffing and mind reading your opponent and trying to predict what you think your opponent's going to do so that you can do yours better and faster. Again, going to those examples, like, if I heavily hit you on a turn when I expect no defense, that's half the game. If I go ahead and do all my tableau building while you're doing half a defense and half tableau building, that's going to move me up faster. If you can kind of read or predict the way your opponent's going to try to do things, you will just be better at the game. And if you haven't liked rock, paper, scissors as a general mechanic in games when it's existed, in games like Yomi and games like, well, rock, paper, scissors, if you don't like that kind of mind-reading aspect of double think and messing with your opponent, this is not a game for you. I do like that, which is part of the reason I like this game. To me, this is just rapid dice rolling, rock, paper, scissors, and tableau building. But if you don't like the rock, paper, scissors, that is a big part of how this game ultimately plays. As far as final thoughts on Kapow, overall Kapow is a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun to go through it, and it's a game that just gives you that dice rolling, that repetitive, building up your tableau and doing all that. And to me, it's just a fun system that gives you a quick head-to-head experience that I've enjoyed so far quite a bit as I go through it. The main thing holding it back for me is the fact that it's a game that the more I've played it, the more I'm playing the exact same game, and so I don't know where this lands as far as whether it stays in my collection long term or not. I have no idea there. What I do know is that I wish the characters brought more to the table, or more of an incentive or reason for me to continue to dive through this. This has a fun system that I really enjoy, but it's a fun system that, as I've played through it, I think I've seen most of what this has to offer. I've tried the various combinations, the various approaches, I've enjoyed it, I'm always happy to sit down and play this, but it is a lighter, quick, pull out the game, have a good time, and have fun with it, which does limit just how high it is for me. For me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoy it. I really wish the characters brought more to the table. That's the kind of thing that could bump it up for me. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, the most obvious one is going to be Dice Throne. Dice Throne is also a head-to-head dice rolling game of just, Yahtzee style dice rolling and all that. And it's interesting because I prefer the core gameplay loop of Kapow as far over Dice Throne, but the character variety of Dice Throne is something that's huge over there. So pros and cons as far as what each game brings to the table. And then if you do like dice crafting and you want a system that leans into it more heavily, although with a lot harder as far as getting the pips in and out, the faces in and out, Dice Forge. Dice Forge is a game I have not played in a while, but you are literally forging your dice as you go through the game, and it really gives you a lot of room and reason as far as reasons why you're forging your dice in different directions to do different things as you roll handfuls of dice that you have crafted yourself. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.